Everyone, and welcome to our Film Festival 2021. My name is Claire O'Neill, and I'm the chair of the Alexander Valley Film Society Board of Directors. Delighted to have you all with us this evening and this week, these 10 days, to get to watch an amazing array of films. We've had a busy year, not seeing each other or you, of course, but working on so many of our initiatives and projects. We especially focused on our diversity work and have a committee that's doing much work in that area. They've prepared and asked me to read now our land acknowledgement. So from the Diversity Committee, the Alexander Valley Film Society recognizes that we are on unceded lands of the Coast Miwok, Pomo, and Wapo. We respectfully acknowledge the Indigenous people who have lived here for thousands of years and to continue to contribute in meaningful ways to their communities and our society. Our shared history includes genocide, forced removal, and ethnic cleansing of Indigenous people. AVFS is committed to centering Indigenous voices and stories, to recognize the past and celebrate the resiliency of the Native people and their cultures. Our deepest thanks go to Nikki Myers-Lim of the California Indian Museum and Cultural Center and Clint McKay for assisting us in this, our first draft. Please visit our website to learn more about this process and how to better ally at www.avfilmsociety.org/equity. The DEBA committee is also holding an open meeting that you may join on Wednesday morning, Wednesday the 28th at 9 a.m. and hear more about what they've been doing and working on in this regard. And you'll see many of our films have a focus that is in line with that new initiative. Well, I now want to introduce our fabulous executive director who can tell you more about what you can enjoy this evening, Catherine Hecht. Hello, Catherine.
Hello.
Welcome to day one.
Thank you. Thank you, Claire. Thank you for being here and for leading so gracefully over such a tumultuous time and really keeping the boat aright, so to speak.
Yeah, it was a storm, but no, we had a great time, and we've all zoomed ourselves to pieces. But now we get to sit back and watch these films at home too, and that's going to be a particularly nice. I know a lot of people have already started watching films, me too, and there's just much to look forward to.
Is there one in particular that you're looking forward to?
Well, one in particular, that's going to be hard.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about the Global Vision shorts and the Indigenous Peoples shorts. And of course, the panels. I know from our last festival that the panels are really what it's all about for me. But I also want to watch Try Harder because that's something we've all had somewhat of an experience. How about you? What's on your big list?
I too am really looking forward to the panels. I mean, this is where if COVID has done anything positive, it's given us more immediate access to some really incredible artists. And so we get to talk to people and hear from them directly and see where their minds and hearts are at and kind of get a more intimate glimpse into how some of these stories are being told and why they're choosing these particular stories. And tonight's guests are a perfect example of that. So I'm really looking forward to talking to the Bridges family tonight and just having this extended window of film for everyone to partake in is really special.
Absolutely. And we all have to send a big thanks to all the filmmakers and directors and producers and actors who are going to be calling in with us this week, because that really is really bringing you onto our screens and our views in our homes. And we very much appreciate that. Well, I'm anxious to hear the interview. So shall I turn myself to that screen and let you begin?
Sounds good. Thank you again for starting us off tonight.
Thank you for all you do.
You're welcome. Have a
You
great
too.
festival. So yes, hello everyone. My name is Catherine Hecht and I'm the Executive Director of the Alexander Valley Film Society. I am beyond thrilled to welcome you to the 7th annual Alexander Valley Film Festival. This is by far our most ambitious festival yet. We have nearly almost 100 screenings and events for you in the next 10 days. Kicking off tonight with a fabulous interview to talk about a very cool film, Acting the First 6 Lessons, with the director and star of the film, Emily Bridges, and her pop, Beau Bridges. So before we get started, a couple of housekeeping notes. First and foremost, thank you to our sponsors and donors for sticking with us this year over the last 15 months. We wouldn't be here without you tonight. So thank you so much for your generosity. And in particular, a couple of notable folks, Cartograph Wines, Alan Baker and Serena Lurie, Big John's Market, Vanguard Properties, Sue Campbell and John Campbell, Hillary and Mike Cambour, Aaron Rothfuss and Brian Watanabe, C. Scott Brown and John Bjornen, and Ron and Jane Pavelka of Pavelka and Associates. So thank you, and to all of our sponsors and donors for being such intrepid supporters. It means the world to us. So a couple of housekeeping things. This will be our longest intro this week. We promise they won't all be this long. But we do want to mention, if you need tech assistance at any point during the festival, please visit our website at avfilmsociety.org/FAQ. You will find live chat support there between the hours of 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. So please use that. We're also providing live captioning on your screen. They should be going. I don't know if they are playing. Let's just look at that. Hopefully the auto captioning is happening on your screen. You can always toggle that on or off by pressing the CC at the bottom of your screen in that Zoom toolbar. Okay, so the way we're going to do questions tonight, please post your questions in the chat window of your screen. We've disabled the Q&A feature to keep the environment more pristine for our attendees and our panelists so that screens aren't popping up. Put your questions in the chat, and when we get to the end of the hour or the end of the interview, Tess will unmute and give us a few of the questions, and we'll hand those over to our panelists. And just a reminder, no racism, homophobia, transphobia, misogyny, or hate speech will be tolerated. This is a safe space for everyone to celebrate film, artists, and the stories they tell. So without further ado, we're so excited to welcome our opening night guests today and to talk about this incredible film. Please, would you welcome Emily and Beau Bridges and Steve Tellez? Come on screen, you guys.
Guys.
Hey.
Hey, so nice to see you.
It worked. Here we are.
Amazing.
You know, before we get going, I'm so excited to hear about the Indigenous peoples' films, and I'm anxious to look at them. And I just finished an incredible book. I mean, don't need to discuss it, but I just want to give the title out there, called Bad Indians by by Deborah Miranda. It's incredible, and it's about the Indians that lived on the coast, the Mission Indians, and the whole saga with the missions and how they, all the stuff that they dealt with and that they continue to deal with today. But it's full of humor and just good stuff. I just wanted to mention that.
Oh, thank you for the recommendation. I mean, that's a lot of what we've been focusing on has been like I think our festival a couple of years ago was about humanity, and this year it's about connection. And we've really been focusing on this piece of belonging and access and what that means for people of color, people from underrepresented groups. And Emily, I mean, we should also say female filmmakers. This is a place where we really want to shine a spotlight. So cool. And before we dig into the film, our folks here not everyone may know Steve Tellez. Steve, can you just tell us a little bit of how you're connected to the Bridges and why you're on this panel tonight?
So in my career, when I started working with a company called Creative Artist Agency, one of the first actors I was meeting with was Beau Bridges, and I remember that first meeting, Beau. Literally, the first thing that he sat down and we were meeting for the first time in my office, and he talked about family. He didn't talk about what can you do for me. It was like family. And it was back and forth for probably about 45 minutes before we even got into business. But I was an agent for 38 years of my career, was as an agent, but in particular with Creative Artist Agency, which was obviously the premier company, and still is, I believe. I had the opportunity to meet some wonderful artists and work with actors, writers, producers, directors, and it was the most amazing experience, to be honest. It really was.
Well,
I can remember, just to talk about the family aspect, when Steve would get me a job, one of the first phone calls I would get would be from my dad. And Lloyd, who was an actor and also represented by CAA at one time or another, although he changed agents many, many times in his career. I'm still with the same agency. But when Steve would get me a job and my dad would call up and he says, "Hey, I heard you got a gig. Anything in there for me?"
oh no.
Anything in there for your brother, your cousin? We've always loved working with family. And my dad actually was born in Petaluma, raised in Sonoma.
That's right.
So, he...
and we've got everybody in this movie, even my grandparents, and they're not on this earth anymore.
Yeah, my dad had a fight with, when he was an altar boy, right at the corner there near the plaza in Sonoma there. He had a fight with Augie Sebastiani.
Oh my God.
He heard cursing or something down there, and my dad called him out, and they had a fight right there on the steps of the church. And my dad, I could never find out from him whether he got the best of Augie, but the fact that he never told me, I think Augie probably whipped him pretty good.
And Sebastiani is a legacy name there in Sonoma.
Oh, I dropped in to the winery to tell them that story, and they laughed, and I got a good bottle of wine out of the story.
That's so good. Well, can we start there? Let's talk about family, because Emily, this is your first feature film, yes?
As a director, yes.
Correct, as a director. And so I wanted to dig into that a little bit, why this particular, well, backing up just a second. So acting the first 6 lessons as a piece of work had started in on the stage. Is that correct?
Yeah, so our journey with this story, with this book and the whole beast it became, started many, many years ago, over a decade ago now, so my dad gave me the book, the Richard Boleslavsky's Acting the First 6 Lessons. It was a book that was very important to my grandfather. For people who aren't, out there reading, somewhat obscure dramatic textbooks. It's a story about an acting teacher and his student, and it follows the course of her career, and it's told kind of like a Socratic dialogue back and forth. It's written like a play. It's quite dense, and as much as it is about the craft of acting, technically, it's also sort of a philosophical exploration of what it means to be an engaged person and empathetic and present and all of the things that you need to be an actor. And so for that reason, my grandfather gave it to all of his kids kids gave it to their kids, and it became this sort of common vocabulary that we have in our family. And so my dad gave me the book when I was about 12, and then I sort of re-encountered it again when I was an undergrad, when I was at Fordham, and I read it in a class. And the summer that I graduated from college, I was home. I was doing Shakespeare up in Topanga Canyon. And I brought it to my dad, and I said, we've always talked about what this would look like as a play. Why don't we start messing with it? And so I honestly typed out the entire book into a Word document so we could start moving things around and changing
Wow.
and connecting. And like my dad says, we just sort of started whittling it like a stick, you know, until it became
Mhm.
something.
Yeah.
And we workshopped the play at Theater West in Los Angeles.
Mhm.
And
Charlie directed.
Charlie Mount was the director of the original play. He was absolutely excellent to work with, and we had a lot of fun doing it. And part of the play was that we would always introduce ourselves as ourselves at the beginning of the play, talk about how we came to this book. Then we would say, we're going to do a play now. And we would do the play as the teacher, and the creature is what he calls my character. And then at the end, we would do a talk back after every single performance. Because,
No, because, questions.
Question and answer kind of thing. Because we felt like the play really needed, you know, it's contextualized by our sort of history and connection to it.
Yeah.
And then many years later, you want to talk about Florida and connecting with David. And
but also, you know, the book was written in 1939 by Boleslavsky. He was a student of Konstantin Stanislavsky's, who founded what is called the method, and it really changed how many actors approach their craft. Brando, Jimmy Dean, Marilyn Monroe, all of those people were, you know, coming out of that whole idea. And also any discussion really about the craft of acting is about, in the end, human behavior, because that's what we do. And so these are, yes, they're acting lessons. They're lessons about the craft, but they're also life lessons. You know, talking about rhythm, the importance of rhythm in your life, the importance of concentration, and all these things.
Observation.
That I will soon be discussing with my grandson Clark.
My little dude.
But and then so I was going to Ringling College to teach a directing course there to the grad students, and the fellow that was going to show me around, David Shapiro from New York with Semcor Productions is his company. He kind of liked the way that all went, and he said, "Do you have any projects that you'd like to see made into a film?" He says, "I've helped build all these wonderful sound stages here, and they really were quite incredible, and they had just been completed at that time." He says, "Do you have anything that you'd like to do?" And I said, "Well, yeah." And I showed him our play, and he loved it. But he said, "You know, what really interests me is your family's involvement. So why not bring them into it and talk about how you guys all interact with this book that's meant so much to your family." So we started, we did that, and then decided to, bring in the family, my sister, my son Jordan, my brother Jeff, and then my eldest son Casey, who's a documentarian filmmaker. He shot all the
he directed all the documentary
portion of it, and then it was Emily's job to figure out how to make all that
put it all
happen.
together. Well, and we what was so amazing about part of this is, you know, we were putting together the interview footage and seeing how it kind of talked to the rest of the film, and I kept just like wishing that my grandparents were in it, like, because they, you know, had so much to do with it. And I found this old footage that I had remembered seeing, and I kind of had to like dig through stuff and find it. And it was the complete interview of something that had like 5 minutes had been pulled from it for this film by a filmmaker named Frederick Keeve, called From Russia to Hollywood. And it was all about people who studied under Michael Chekhov and some other people. And that was how my grandfather first encountered this book, was studying with Michael Chekhov. And so I had this gold mine of my grandparents talking about basically all of the stuff, because Boleslavsky and Michael Chekhov were in the same sort of cohort. They went kind of different directions.
Right.
But it was amazing because all of a sudden it was like they were there and they were talking about the same stuff we were talking about. And so that was really fun for me to go through some of that. And Frederick was amazing to let us use the footage. But it was great because you've got my grandparents and they're bickering and they're just like, I remember them. Lovely.
Well, and so this is a really long time for this project to be gestating for an artist, right? So it's over the course of a decade, it was working its way through your lives and your relationship with each other and how you communicate. And then Emily, you bring it into focus in this new way. What changed for you bringing it from the stage onto the screen?
I think finding the documentary portion of it was hugely helpful because we kept trying to visualize how we were going to do the talk back with no live audience.
Yeah.
And that helped us do that.
We performed it in many different places.
Mm-hmm.
One of the places we performed it that I remember very fondly was I did a movie called The Other Side of the Mountain, which was the story of Jill Kinmont, the skier that was paralyzed and changed her life. She was an Olympic champion and a hopeful. And she ended up being a teacher, actually, in a primarily Indian school down below the mountain there. And she invited us to come and perform it there with her. That was really fun. And so we had a lot of experiences like that. We performed it in all sorts of areas outside.
We did it at libraries, in a big theater, and community centers, just kind of whoever would listen to us.
We just tried it out, because I think that's the way to do it. That's how you find things, is just by doing it. It's not a mind thing where you just sit there wondering, what's going to happen.
No, and what was kind of amazing when we made the film was through this connection with Semport Productions. They were set up at Ringling at the time, and the way that they ran this program is that they would pair professional filmmakers with student filmmakers, and all of the key positions were a lot of people who'd done it before, but then the students were working with us in a lot of really important roles on the film, and it was kind of incredible because it was a very life imitating art, imitating life kind of situation. And me being a first-time director, I was certainly learning a lot on the job, as you do. But that was kind of that helped shape, I think, a lot of the film in and of itself, because we would encounter technical issues. We're filming in a sound stage, and we want to do this and we want it to feel theatrical, but we also don't want it to seem cheesy. Oh, you know what, we're just gonna give it all away. We're gonna say we're on a sound stage, back it up, and show the seams, warts and all. And that was a very kind of freeing experience too, because you didn't have people saying no, because we were willing to try things.
I had directed my father several times in movies that I directed, and it was quite an experience because he was my teacher as well. And I had a similar experience with my daughter growing up. We worked together. She worked I guess you worked in films that I directed too, didn't you? Yeah, and so we had that relationship before. So now to be directed by her, reminded me of my dad. I mean, my dad, I remember I was directing him in a Disney film one time and had kind of a difficult scene with a lot of the characters, and we were losing light and, the pressure of losing the day. And he comes up to me and he puts I can't do it. He had his finger way down here where he thought nobody could see. He went like this. Like this, asking me to follow him, and then he went around the corner. And I said, Dad, what are you doing? You don't think the crew saw what you just did there? This is terrible, humiliating for me. And he said, you need a crane for this shot. He says, you're never going to finish it. he says, you know, you're screwed. He says, you got to ask for a crane. I said,
Huh.
Dad, it's a Disney film. They don't have the budget for this small film. No. Anyway, I totally failed on that scene, and I ordered the crane for the next morning, and I finished it in about an hour. So I would always call him at the end of every day. I would say, okay, Dad, here's what I'm thinking about tomorrow. What do you think? But with my daughter, it was quite different. On this show, I could tell right away, she was on firm ground, and I just did what she told me, sort of what I do with my wife. My wife told me.
Smart man, smart man.
It was, I think, a really interesting, when we were first writing it, also, I was fresh out of college and had a lot to prove. And I think that's where we would kind of creatively crash up against each other a little bit more. And, we would, cling to, no, we can't cut that part out, or we have to, rewrite the scene, that kind of thing. And I think that this experience of making this film together was just, there was so much gratitude attached to it, looking ahead many, many years after we first started delivering it, where I would just wake up in the morning and my mom would watch my son and I'd go to work with my dad, and it was like a dream. It was like an incredibly special experience that I just remember feeling so much gratitude throughout the whole thing. I mean, incredible stress, and it's making a movie and all of that stuff,
Sure.
but lots of gratitude.
I got to tell you, I think that really comes through. That is something that I really picked up from the film. It felt so warm, and not for nothing, but who do we have to thank for the set decoration? Is that the Ringling crew? Are those students?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So lush.
Yeah.
So many great colors, and it just, everything about it is really warm and inviting. And
that was an amazing thing too, because again, those students, we were working on the concept of the film, and they were incredibly patient because we hadn't gotten there yet, because so much of it you have to kind of create as you're seeing things. And they were all in Florida, we're in California. We were doing things, on, video chat before that was even a thing, really, that we all started living in these Zoom boxes.
We only got there like a week before we
did the entire pre-production experience on video chat with these students, and they would send me, ideas, and I would say yes, and I'd say no, and then of course I show up and I, throw a little bomb into everything that they've done. And they responded. They were incredible. They were really absolute pros, and amazing to work with.
I really like I always loved the relationship between the teacher and their student. I mean, I had great experiences with teachers in my life and coaches. I mean, I played basketball under John Wooden at UCLA. That guy was a Yoda, man. I mean, he, besides winning almost 10 national championships in a row, he was what he wanted was for the members of his team to be good citizens, and I love that relationship. And then also this story for us is so personal, because it is about family in the end, even though these people aren't related, this teacher and his student, they go through this incredible journey together and come out really so close. When they begin, he sends her off in tears in the beginning. And I remember, I mean, for me, the way we started, our first night that we performed, I was diagnosed that afternoon, without getting into the whole thing of it, with a very serious disease, and I had not shared it with my daughter, and here we're going to go on in front of all our friends and everything, and I knew I was going to face a lot of medical stuff coming up, and I thought, should I tell her before we go out there, or should I let us perform it and then I'll tell her? And then I said, no, we're in this together. So I told her before we went out there, then we said a little prayer, went out and did it. And that's what you do as actors. You tell the story. But that experience, and now, by the way, I'm, I'm doing fine, but and I got through it. But this is what actors do. They tell the stories and they share personal feelings. And so that experience right there, the first performance informed everything that we did after that in terms of telling the story. I think.
Wow, that's so moving. Thank you for sharing that. What, Emily, what about, so what's next? Do you have the director bug? Do you want to keep going with projects?
I mean, right now, I think we're looking for distribution for this film. We want to find a really good home for it. It's a unique piece. I mean, I'm not sure the people who we're talking to right now, if they've already seen it or if they're going to see it, but it is incredibly unique in both form and structure and just about everything about it. And so, yeah, just looking for the right home for this one.
Yeah, it's certainly a new place for me. I mean, I've been in this business over 70 years and never really got into marketing, and it's huge. I mean, it's almost more important than the product itself, because if you don't get it out there, what's the use? So I'm getting informed every day about how this works. I've heard that a sales agent is important. I'm sure Steve and I will talk when we're hanging out.
I was going to say, I know a guy.
We'll be talking about it because I want to know how we can best go about it.
I'll look out, Steve.
Being in a festival, certainly you guys were so gracious to invite us in. That's a big step because you're giving us a place to show it, and that's great. We're really appreciative of that.
Oh, you're welcome. This is the best part about film festivals, is having a place to show new work and meet new audiences. Steve, I want to change lanes for just a second and talk to you about as you were getting into the business, did you come from a family of artists?
Well, actually, yes. My father was a producer. He started early on in his life and career. I remember he started in radio, and in El Paso, Texas. I was born in El Paso in the Army hospital called Fort Bliss. So he was a local hero. He actually was a programmer at KTSM. He had a little show called the 430 Hop, which was very much like Dick Clark's, dance stand, and he was the host. So he was very much a local hero, and he decided, he always was looking for the next step, for what's next. So then we moved to San Rafael, San Francisco. He worked and discovered a guy named Les Crane. So, I've always been around this, and he produced radio from the Les Crane Show. He went to New York City where the Les Crane Show was so successful that they wanted to put it up against Johnny Carson in New York. So we all moved across the country. We're looking for a place. We were in New York City in an apartment while he was getting settled. That show was immediately canceled. So we're in New York City, and this is the life, right, of a producer. Yeah. And so the next thing you know, he gets a job as a talent coordinator for the Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, and then becomes the producer of the Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. So I've always been around actors, writers, directors, comedy, big bands, music. It's been so much a part of my life. So yeah, I did come from that kind of a background.
Well, and we know, I don't mean to speak about Ryan while he's not here, but it also is now part of your family, your immediate family.
Yes, and Ryan is in the he's created with his friends something for the internets, the YouTubes, called the Web Zone, which has been very, very successful. And he spent like 9 years with them, and now he's kind of off on his own, venturing and trying to create new things and writing. And he's actually doing stand-up to expand his horizons. It's really tough. But he is a very, very good writer, not only musically, but also in terms of comedy and drama.
So then to kind of connect these two, Steve, so you have this conversation with Beau. You talked about family. This is, I'm assuming, at least a couple of decades ago. How do you as an agent in Hollywood start to make space for those kinds of values that might not be reflected in other areas of the business. So clearly this is very important to Beau. It's a through line for the whole Bridges family. How do you steward that and make space for that and get him projects that align with those values?
I think what right off the bat, his values were my values in terms of family, in terms of, having that space and having being surrounded with the people you love and that love you. So when you're out there looking at the landscape in the studios and going through projects and taking offers or seeking offers, I'm always cognizant of who those other people are and trying to bring that sensibility to my clients, and Beau in particular, who I know is very much a family man and very much cares about his work and is very studied and very obviously very good at it because he's got numerous nominations. But we were in this together since 1994 through about 2009. So we did a lot we went through a lot together.
Yeah.
And I saw you play some incredible roles. I mean, the wide range of roles that Beau has played is unbelievable. And then Emily walked into my house one day and you did a monologue for me. I believe, would you remember the monologue?
No.
Oh my goodness. Literally, it was, and she was fantastic. And I was like, wow.
Wow.
But that's family, that's, and Emily's got that, she's got it. She's got that, the through line, the family sensibility. It's hard to put into words, but it's something you have. And it comes from, the through line is it started with your father, you, your brother, Jordan, all of the family is that way. They're very, very, they're just loving people who care about what they do.
When we do this, actors, because I have several actors now in my family. My young son Zeke is an actor as well. And I mentioned Casey, my oldest son, who's a documentary filmmaker, and then Jordan, as Steve mentioned, is an actor. My son Dylan is a director of social media at Universal, so he's on the other side.
He's the smart one.
I was gonna say.
Oh, and by the way, Casey actually coached our daughter Samantha in a previous, like at a soccer league, like a elite soccer league. So
he's still doing that. He's got a soccer academy. Yeah. But what I was going to say, leading up to saying that, was that when it is a family business and you're working with family, you need someone that's out there in the world of entertainment representing you that you can trust. And that may seem like an easy call, but it's not, let me tell you.
I bet.
And I could trust this man explicitly. And he would tell me, sometimes things that maybe I didn't want to hear, but I could trust that he was going to tell me what was his truth. And that's all I could ask from him. And he always did that when he was representing me. And I hope that it's going to happen when I go visit him and he gives me wine. I can trust.
You can't handle the truth.
Watch out, this man is vaccinated. He's like,
I know.
come on, world.
We're ready. It's going to be fun.
That's great. So I have one more question, and then we'll take a couple of questions from the audience. Beau, I would love to know what it was like for you when you found out that Emily had the bug, that Emily wanted to go into the business, and Emily, alternatively, for your own son, do you have any trepidation about that, or concerns or excitement?
Well, I was excited by it, but I also, when I saw her off to Fordham, where she went to college, I hid behind a bush and just lost it, when I watched her walk out to see all the new people. And I also, I had faith in her, because even by that early age, I knew she had what it takes to be a wonderful actor. I just knew it. But I also knew that, especially back in those days when she was just starting out, being a woman and being an actress, there were some challenges there, because it wasn't a level playing field. I think it's probably still not. It's getting better, but that concerned me. I worried about that. But I never, I never said no. My dad never said no to any of us. But he told us, he used to say, look, you got to realize that there's a whole bunch of people that want that one job they're looking for. So you got to prepare your butt off because only one person gets the job, and all you can do is do your very best. And that's what John Wooden talked about. He said he wrote a thing called the Pyramid of Success. And he said success has nothing to do with winning. It has to do with leaving the task knowing that you've done your very best. And that's what I tell my children when they go out there and try to seek employment. I said, just go in there, prepare your ass off, give the best thing you can do, and then walk away a winner, because you don't lose in that situation. Only one person gets it,
Yeah. And Emily, do you have any thoughts about?
Well, he's little still. He's 2.5. And he's been so far only in utero. He was a bump in a couple of things. I think just it's amazing, at the age that he is really fun because his personality is starting to develop and emerge, and it's really wonderful when I see him do things that are so not me. I'm like, where did this come from? This is so I guess I don't know. We'll just wait and see. But he's certainly been around it like I was. So
yeah. Well, let's take a couple of questions. Tess, can you please unmute yourself and give us some goodies?
Hi, sure. So one of the questions.
Pretend you have a microphone and you're you're in the audience.
Here's a question from an attendee. I'm curious if you've ever played a character you just couldn't really get behind or empathize with. If so, how do you handle that?
Who's that for? Both of us?
Sure. Yes.
Well,
you played a lot of interesting ones.
Yeah, I played a lot of interesting ones. I think I would answer that by saying I think one of the first assignments as an actor is whatever that part is, you are representing somebody, so you better figure out how you relate to that character and find some truth in it. Like my dad always said, speak these lines like you're saying them for the first time, he said, and find a truth in it. It doesn't have to be everybody's truth, but it should be yours, when you speak it. And I think I played a lot of different kind of characters. I always look for humor. I always, I think we've all, got bad guys and good guys inside us all, so if I'm playing a real dark, terrible character, I try to find, what is there one redeeming feature, or, where did that thing come from? And
I was going to ask you about One Night in Miami, actually.
Yeah, okay.
Because because that's an interesting example of that, and you were both in that together.
Yeah, with wonderful guy Regina King, who is a friend, and I knew her before she directed us in that. I felt really weird about that one, especially saying that word. And but I also know Jim Brown, and so I never spoke to Jim about his experiences in reality, but I know he probably had some like that. But I thought, that guy to me was a product of his life experience, unfortunately, in that case. And he, he had a lot of redeeming features about him. I think he really liked this man that he was sitting down having a glass of lemonade that his granddaughter, not my daughter, my granddaughter.
God bless the makeup team.
Yeah, that but he was very, very nice and welcoming to this man. But in the end, he revealed his past and where his roots were, where he came from. And I think that's one of the major challenges for us as a society, as Americans, really, is to figure all that mess out. How do we get beyond that, and how do we recognize it? And I think recognizing it is probably the most important thing that has to happen right now. And I think that that story, that movie, really addressed that in a really wonderful way. I think with those men, they came together.
Well, I love what you say about the character being a product of their circumstances, because even if that's not necessarily empathizing with the character, but kind of doing the mental gymnastics of how they got to wherever they end up in the story. One thing that I automatically thought of like, a character that did you connect with or not? I did a musical about Lizzie Borden, you can believe it. And
I'll be right back.
Okay, sure. And one of the things that I did to kind of keep things fresh and to stay connected, because also again, like, do you want to connect with Lizzie Borden? I mean, right? So every night I would decide whether or not she did it. Because it was kind of a did she, didn't she at the end. And so every time I decided, okay, today I'm a murderer. Oh, today I've been scapegoated. And that would help me, whatever that connecting is with a character.
Oh, that's a great example. And something your dad just said too, that performance, that scene with the two of you would not have been half as effective had we not identified with the man before he showed us the true colors of the race.
That's if I'm going to talk about my dad while he's out of the room. That's my favorite characters to see him play, because he can be such a warm, sweet kind of guy, and so when he does something evil, it's like, no.
I know. I agree with you on that. Tess, how about another one?
Sure, I have one for you, Emily. Who is your bucket list person to work with besides your family?
I don't know that I've ever thought about that question. A bucket list person to work with. I mean, like my sort of initial gut response to that question is someone's work I haven't even seen yet. Someone who, I think we see a lot of the same people out there making movies, and I want somebody new. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
Okay.
Very different experience to my own.
Oh, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
So I have one here for Steve. Steve, did you ever find a movie for Beau that he didn't want to do, and vice versa?
No, I think there were movies that were brought to me that I brought to you that I knew were not right, and but it was an offer, so I would bring it to Beau, and he would say, no, this is not for me. But for the most part, I think for the most part, Beau, you really looked at each role and saw, if you didn't see something in the character that you could bring to life, then you wouldn't do it. And it doesn't matter how big or small the character is. If you look at Beau's body of work, it's major leads and it's 2-3 scenes. But those 2 or 3 scenes have to come to life, and that's what Beau would say. Beau would say, okay, you know what? I know this guy. I can really sell this. I get it, and I want to do it. But I don't think there was anything that I ever brought to you that you didn't want to do, because you really examined everything that was brought to you in a very personal way.
I think so, yeah. I mean, the truth of it is, every time I finish a job, and I wonder if I'm ever going to get hired. I mean, that's the life.
That was the next call.
So yeah. He called me with a job offer, and that was always a good thing. And it had to be something really pretty awful for one reason or another. And usually we would agree on it and we talk about it. And but I'd always end the conversation with, is there anything else out there for me?
Or I let this one go.
Yeah.
Tess, how about one more?
Okay, one more. With the Oscars coming up this weekend, are there any Oscar predictions or favorites you would like to shout out?
Uh,
I'm trying to think.
No, I kind of, because I have quite a few friends in there, so I don't want
That's not-
And they're probably all watching.
to. Yeah,
So,
yeah. It's going to be kind of a weird one virtually, but
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be fun. Yeah, in fact, the guy who's at the helm now, Steven Soderbergh, I've worked with him, and so I think Steven is going to really manufacture a great show. I think he'll be good.
I really like Minari. Oh, that was just a beautiful film.
Mhm.
yeah,
There's a few really, really interesting ones this year.
it was really different this year, just taking it all in at home.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I can't thank you enough for being here. I mean, I just think that if I may, if I have any parting thoughts, and I've gotten a little weepy tonight. I had my second shot yesterday, and
Oh,
it's,
yeah.
I know, fully vaccinated, but it's definitely taken a toll today. I'm a little woo. But I'm really, I'm just been so moved by the story of your family and the project and how it's come to fruition, and Steve's connection to you. And Steve, just a big thank you from me for introducing us to the Bridges and for being such a stalwart supporter of what we do at the Film Society, and Kirsten, who's back there running your tech somehow.
Thank you,
but-
Kirsten.
Thank you, Kirsten.
Yeah, and so parting thoughts, if one of those students from Ringling College was watching tonight, Emily, what is something you'd say to them now that the film is in front of audiences and starting to have a new life?
Oh, I would thank them because they brought their A game, you know.
Sure.
I think it was an incredible mix of when you felt something was the right call to advocate for it, and when you were a little out of your depth going, and it went for all of us, you know, because everybody was doing something we hadn't done before. And so I would tell them to enjoy people seeing eyes on what they created, because they worked their butts off, and I thought that they did incredible work.
And also, you know, just because somebody is young doesn't mean that they don't have it all going on for them. I mean, there are some very talented people in there.
Incredibly talented people.
I remember a young man coming to me, he must have been in his early 20s, pitching a sci-fi thing to me in my house years ago.
Wow.
And it was very epic and huge. And I said to him, you know, it's a wonderful idea, but I really, you know, just to be honest with you, I think that you should sort of temper, you know, you're young, you're starting out, you want to choose something that's more realistic for you to get done, you know what I mean? Steven Spielberg.
Shut the front door.
Come on.
So I worked with his daughter years later, and I said, please tell me Pop, that I was such an ass when
Oh my
because, you know, hey, think about some of the incredible things that have been created by young people.
Yeah.
I mean, come
Oh
on.
my
Well,
God.
and
Yeah.
truthfully, that is the follow-up to what I would say with them, is going, you know, remember me.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Yeah. Oh no, we had some very, very talented people involved with
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
Wow, that is not where I thought that story was going. That is awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for being here. This is just the perfect way for us to not only open the festival, but just after the year we've had to come together and get to meet the two of you and talk about family and art and legacy and acting and have Steve with. I just thank you all for being here. It really
Thank
means a
you.
lot.
This was
Thank you.
really
Very
fun.
cool. I enjoyed it.
Awesome. All right, for the rest of you, we'll see you at the movies for the rest of the week. We have so many fun things coming up.
I can't wait to see him. Yeah. This is
Yeah,
good.
stay safe, stay sane, stay connected out there, and we'll see you later.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye,
See you
everybody.
soon.
Bye. See you next week.